Whilst we're talking about the Brussels underground attack, I thought I'd use this particular clip to get across as to how the news operate and work, because ultimately, if we're looking for common themes in these events, the way the news operates is one of them. So the best way to compare them is almost to like an advertisement commercial. So what you're watching effectively is like the highlights of something. So you'll see short words, terror in Brussels. It doesn't elaborate any more on that. Then you'll have somebody talking over the background. You'll have things running along the bottom. You'll have 5 to 10 second clips of things going on. You can't really piece it together, but you get an idea that something bad has happened because of the words. You can see something's going on because people are running about, and then they'll show you little clips here and there. So like in this case, a blown up train. So it's for you. It leaves you putting the pieces together in your mind and going, all right, that's what's happened. They don't show you bit by bit, because if they did, then you would be able to study what was on the screen a bit more, and they don't want you to do that. So what I'll do is I'll play this clip and then I'll pause it just to point out the significant part of what's been said or what has been put on the screen, and how it's important to manipulate you in a sense. So here we go.
About 7 miles away from the airport, horror struck again when a bomb exploded on a rush hour subway train near the European Union headquarters. It happened about an hour after the airport blast. Alan Pizzi is at the Malbeek subway station.
Minutes after an explosion ripped apart a rush hour subway train in central Brussels, passengers scrambled to safety in near pitch dark.
So what you had so far is one presenter just explaining the outline of what has happened, but because the transition from that to this particular clip, it's so that it misleads the viewer into believing that this particular train you're watching and these people that are coming off are directly involved in the bombing. But we know that's not the case, because as per my prelude video, we've seen that they were just simply evacuating nearby trains. And the thing is because people get drawn in so much by this, they forget that they're actually watching this through the eye of a camera, and they're never questioning as to why the camera is there in the first place. So it's a bit like the riddle of, 11 people go to a party and 10 people are in a photograph. Where's the 11th person? Well, it's the person taking the photograph. And don't forget, if they're evacuating, why is it that somebody is allowed to stay and film this if they're not already pre-authorized to be there?
Smoke billowed from the station entrance as dazed commuters streamed out.
Based on this clip that you've just seen, what he says and what you see are two different things, and that's the manipulation angle, where he's saying that smoke is billowing out and people are streaming out the underground, but the clip just doesn't show that.
The explosion went off barely an hour after the airport attack.
Now, it might be a matter of opinion, but his description of the bomb happening barely an hour after sounds better or more sudden than it happened just over an hour after. And it's again to give you that idea that something frantic is happening.
The mangled remains of the cars were graphic evidence of why there were so many horrific casualties.
Whilst we've talked about this picture before and how it was taken by a journalist, the idea is they're happy to show you this, what is a graphic picture as they've described, but it's so that you have no doubt that this is what has happened. It's conclusive evidence that a bomb has gone off here, and it won't make you think anything other.
Some of them had to be treated in the street. Many had what appeared to be serious head injuries.
So this might be something or nothing, but in the newspapers, even though they're pinning the blame on a particular person, they still use the phrase that the alleged suspect. Now the thing is the way I see it is that they're using that phrase so that it can't come back on them if anything was to change. Now based on this clip, he's just said that they appeared to have head injuries. Well, of course she does. You can see there she's got a bandage on her. But the way he's wording it is so that if you see in a different clip with no head injuries and tried to call them out on it, they would have a means of getting out of it by saying, well, we only said it appeared to be, we didn't actually say that she had. But it doesn't really matter, because they've shown you the clip anyway, and they've shown you the nature of their injuries. So whether she is injured or not is neither here nor there. They've already shown somebody who looks injured, and that's all that matters to them.
Emmanuel Battio arrived during the aftermath.
You see it in movies.
So this witness has just compared it to a movie, which I've said before. If that comes out, there's usually a reason as to why it looks like a movie.
But you cannot imagine when you see people yelling like they are going to die, and you don't know. You feel like you are raging.
Just quickly, I'm going to be doing a separate video to do with it, but the news have got a massive upper hand with these things. They can show you clips of anything and that you will believe that this has happened at a particular train station because they're telling you so. So when you see clips like this stretcher being wheeled down the street, you're not going to think anything of it. But like I say, we'll do a separate video because ultimately that particular clip that you've just seen isn't really relative to anything in terms of the station. But because the news are showing it, you're not going to question it, and even more so if you've never been there.
Lachlan Carmichael was on another train in the tunnel.
And we received a big blast of air, and the train stopped.
So here we go again, another guy who's associated with the press. How is it possible that the only people that are on these trains or in these events and do the interviews are all associated with the press? It's just unbelievable, and too many coincidences, which, as before, don't believe in coincidences when it comes to these things.
Your attention, please.
And we had the normal recording announcements. We've just had an incident on the line. Passengers told me inside they felt very nervous, very worried.
Police and soldiers flooded the area. The station is only about 400 yards from the European Parliament building, and the area is considered among the most secure in the Belgian capital. But this is a city that lives with a major terrorist threat in its midst.
So we're at the point of the clip now where they're sort of rounding up the activity, and the thing is that this is where the most manipulation actually occurs, because you've got to listen to what he says in comparison to what they show. In one hand, he's saying that the soldiers are flooding the area and that the station is near EU buildings, therefore it's considered one of the most safe, but then completely contradicts it to make sure that there's the fear element still there by saying that it still has a terror threat. But look at what they show you. They're showing you the soldiers, and they're showing you guys in full-face balaclavas and things like that, because these are the ones that are causing the terror. That's why terror still exists in these places, because of people like this. They're part of the hoax, therefore that they're actually telling you the truth. Yes, it's safe, but terror still exists because these guys are still going to keep doing these kind of things until they're found out.
It emanates from here, the suburb of Molenbeek, that is known to have sent at least 30 foreign fighters to Syria. Many of the Paris terrorists lived and plotted the November attacks in the neighborhood.
I mean, really, are they trying to get across that people that are just selling basic items like clothes, fruit and veg are really going to be masterminding these things? It really gets me. I mean, PK Truth, he's pointed out many a time that at the end of the day, if these terrorists wanted to do real harm, you know, at the end of the day, they're angry because governments are bombing countries, and they're bombing indiscriminately, whether it's women, children, hospitals, whatever it might be, that they should really be targeting the EU buildings that are 400 yards down the road, not some underground train where who knows what the kill count would have been, who knows what people they might have actually killed. They might have killed people from this area who may have similar backgrounds to them, and that's why you can't believe these things to be true. But the idea that they're trying to pin it on Joe Public, and therefore shows how they don't want you to trust anybody, and that's how they maintain control of a population. If you can't relate to the person that you walk past in the street, then however you're going to share any sort of common ground with them, so that things like this, for example, you know, there's the people that are watching this video that know what I'm talking about and understand, but if we have differences or we don't all see the same picture, then we're never going to be able to beat this kind of thing. So the clip ends with this guy, and he's the guy who interviewed Ketavan. I mean, I'm not going to play it because it's what he talks about is of no consequence. But what I'm trying to get at with this is just one clip. Now imagine all the different news stations all pumping this same rubbish. You can see how people get indoctrinated by it all, because as soon as you see one clip and that's the narrative, because they all have the same story. It's not as if they're all slightly different or they're in competition with each other to get the best photograph or anything like that. It's a case of here's the script and everybody's got to stick to it. And it's sad really, because people will see clips like The Market and they'll look at those people and think, oh well, TV says they're terrorists so I can't trust them, when in actual fact they're just normal people. Yet they show the soldiers and say that they're the ones that are protecting you, when we know they're the ones that are assisting in just creating this facade. And it's interesting to wonder at what point people are going to say, wait a second, we've got loads of military police, we've got police that are armed, we've got loads of CCTV, yet these terror attacks keep happening. Well then, eventually, it's got to come down to a failure of the government. But to be honest, by the point you try and revolt or have a revolution or, you know, try and protest about it, the damage will be done, because they'll be so protected by the things that you thought were keeping you safe, it was actually keeping them safe. Anyway, thanks very much for sticking out this video. I'll get on to my next one soon.